Yeah. And I'm really grateful that Dan Chang will give us 30 minutes for a speech and also Q&A, and also to learn about what we're doing here. I invited Dan Chang because actually how many of you would know like what a LUC school board does? Anyone knows? Yeah, we have some hands from my co-workers. Yes, Oliver, what do you think the school board does?
Like they make decisions as a whole for the good of the district.
Thank you. They make important decisions, and they actually oversee a huge amount of budgets. And can you even guess how big is the budget? I think that really speaks volumes about the importance of their impact. Anyone can guess the budget? 1 billion. It's actually more than 1 billion.
3 billion. 5, 10.
Close. So 15 billion is very close.
18.
18. Oh yeah, we got. Wait, we completely that. Oh, 18 billion. So it's a significant amount of money, which means decision power, and they are deciding on things like mental health services. And I'll let Dan explain more why he's running and the important things that he really cares about and the things about changing for our company. He is not only a very passionate math teacher, but also a proud parent, and also an educator, spending the last, I would say, 20 years transforming some of the most challenging schools, and also improving the life for students, families, and teachers right here in the back. So I want us to all learn more about Dan Chang and also ask questions. So if he's elected, what do you want him to do? Like things that you're going to share with him now will be important to do it here today. So without further ado, let's give a round of applause to Dan Chang.
Hi, thank you guys very much for having me. I'll try and keep this short. First of all, I heard a couple of the schools that you guys mentioned. I heard North Hollywood. Are there some Granada Hills kids here? Any Birmingham kids? Chatsworth High School kids? What high school do you go to? Campbell Hall. North Hollywood, good. So, I'm a math teacher. I have a 20-year track record of improving schools in Los Angeles, and the LA Unified School Board, we pass the budget, we oversee the schools from North Hollywood, all the way on that side of the valley, all the way to Chatsworth, right here, Granada Hills included, Cleveland High School. Those are all schools in the board district that I'm running for. I'm on the November 5th ballot. So you'll vote for president, and then 2 spots underneath that, you will probably see my name. Ding was kind enough to invite me to speak to you, and when she told me about cheer, and when I did some research, I was like, I cannot wait to be here. Literally 30 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I'm 48 years old, but I literally would be sitting in a seat just like you guys, right? If it was a weekend, me and my friends would all be at church, right? I think the only difference between me 30 years ago and you guys is that 30 years ago, if me and my friends were at church, we would be there, then we would go out and find an arcade and do something else, right? We were not actually being productive like you guys in going out and doing cleanups, figuring out projects to, do clothing drives for homeless shelters, right? So the community that you guys have built here, what you guys actually do with your time, is amazing, and I couldn't be more proud to be here. I know it's your 5th anniversary to support an organization like this, because it really does, as Ding said, it takes a community to raise a child, and for that child to learn the right things so that they can be successful when they're an adult in America. That happens here. It happens because of everything that you guys do, and it happens because you guys have a group of friends, and you guys are out and doing the right things and doing the important things in life. So everything that you're learning here, guaranteed, these are the lessons that you will learn that will take you throughout your life. If I think about my own journey, I think I had 2 dreams growing up. The first, when I was like 8 years old, I wanted to be an Air Force pilot. I wanted to fly fighter jets. And somewhere back in the 80s, I don't think anybody said this to me, but I got it in the head that an Asian kid that doesn't look like the pilots I see on TV. Like, I just couldn't join the Air Force. I thought you had to be 6 feet tall. I thought you couldn't be Chinese. And so I told myself I couldn't do that. No one told me, I just thought that's what happened because that's all I saw on TV. Times have changed, which is great. There's so much more representation, which is important. But fast forward to like 14 years old. When I was 14 in 8th grade, I watched a movie. It's called Stand and Deliver. It was about a Latino math teacher in East LA. And I saw that movie, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I knew right then and there, I wanted nothing else but to be an urban math teacher, right? And I did the next logical thing. I didn't pursue that dream, right? When I went to college, does anybody want to guess what my major was in college? I'll ask the students. What do you think my first major was in college?
Business.
Good guess. That was my second major. What was my first major?
Philosophy.
No, come on, not philosophy.
Music.
Music? No.
Law, pre-law.
There you go, pre-med, right? Like my first major, I go to college, like, hey, I want to be a teacher, but maybe I should go be a doctor first. I did that for like 1 year, and I was like, okay, I don't think that works. But I didn't become an education major. I was like, okay, I need to figure out what to do, so I'm going to be a business major, right? So then I got a business degree. I actually have 2 business degrees. But I spent the next 30 years of my life not teaching, right? I worked in finance, I worked in technology. In 2003, I moved back down to LA, I was getting married. I was like, I really want to teach, but I wasn't brave enough to do it. So I worked at a nonprofit that opened charter schools in high-need parts of Los Angeles. So I was in public education, but I was not in the classroom. And then 7 years ago, I was sitting in front of my computer, and I literally couldn't bring myself to do another piece of work. I couldn't send another email. I couldn't schedule another meeting. And it's because the dream that I had when I was 14 years old came up and just literally physically grabbed me. I closed my computer, I got out a journal, and I wrote the first thing that came to my mind. It was, I need to teach, right? It was my 14-year-old self talking to me when I was 42, saying like, you are really close to being in the classroom. I work in education, I've done all these things, but I haven't done that thing that I actually really dreamed about. And so 7 years ago, at 42, I closed that computer, I read that journal, I quit my job, and 4 months later, I was in the classroom teaching. And you know when you're doing that thing you were meant to do, when every day feels like joy. When what you do on a day-to-day basis connects with you. And that's what it's like for me as a teacher. When I'm in the classroom, I am just always thinking and obsessing about my students. Every word I say, every lesson I put out there, I'm looking for that feedback and that response from my students, and I'm pushing them, they're pushing me, and every day I come home and I'm tired, I'm exhausted because I put it all out there, but it feels so good. Like you come home tired, but you know you're doing that thing you were meant to do. And so my hope for all of you guys, because you have this community and you're doing this work, is that, don't ever be afraid to listen to yourself and what you think you like to do. Because even for me, it was like 14 years old, but some experience that you guys have had in your life probably connects with you in a way that feels good. And at some point in your life, whether you pursue it in college, whether you pursue it coming out of college, whether you do it in your 40s like I did, don't be afraid to listen to that voice. It's gonna come back and call to you anyways. And when you do it and you feel it, run with it. Because that is one of your purposes here. And again, congratulations to Cheer for your 5th anniversary and all the great work that you guys are doing. And I'm really excited to meet more of you in the meet and greet. Thank you guys very much. Q&A.
Yeah. I resonate with so much what Dan shared, and I want to actually say your business background is definitely an asset.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about all important budgetary decisions you're making if elected to the board. I also resonate so much of the joy you mentioned about teaching, being with students. So I'd now like to open up for questions for Dan. Any questions or comments?
Back.
Thank you so much, Dan, for coming to our community. Actually, when I saw your name in the ballot, maybe a lot of mailers to my house, finally I saw, oh, this Chinese American finally running for the board. I'm so
Yeah.
happy for that. I do want to ask you a few questions, maybe just one question. And yeah, I look at the image, really nice, but you really pick a hard question because that's the equation have no solution at all. So
Correct.
yeah, just hard. I don't know, they will notice it. Yeah. I do want to ask you, what if you get elected to the board,
Yeah.
and we wish that's okay, we hope that's the case. What are your priorities for the RSD? They have
Yeah.
so big a budget, and there are so many things you can spend money on. And as parents, we want to know where do you want to put your money on, so many different projects. What are the priorities you have in your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, couple of things. First, student safety. So in LA Unified right now, they do all these student surveys, and the percentage of students who feel unsafe at an LA Unified campus has actually doubled in the last 2 years. So the first priority for me in office is actually student safety. Can we get more school police? Can we put more money towards mental health services? But students need to feel safe. And when they feel safe, they can learn. And that would be the second piece, right? So when I started in education in 2003 in Los Angeles, about 60% of students could not read at grade level, and about 70% of students in LA were not at grade level in math. 20 years later, fast forward to today, those numbers haven't changed. They're still the same. Like LA Unified from an education perspective has just been completely flat for the last 20 years, and to the detriment of literally hundreds of thousands of students that have come through the system. So if we make the campuses safe, then the next priority is absolutely boosting achievement in math and reading. And there are proven ways to do it. What I do in my math class, we call it problem-based math. That's what should be in every school. We know how to teach kids to read. It's phonics-based, it's called the science of reading. We need to implement that and scale that at all of the schools in LA Unified. And then the third thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the downtown bureaucracy and bring more money to local schools. LA Unified has an $18 billion budget. It's run downtown, and the central office has a habit of taking money from local schools, bringing it downtown, and then no one knows what happens to the money. And I'll give you a very tangible example. Last year, every elementary school in LA Unified should have had double the amount of arts teachers on campus. Instead, LA Unified took that money from their elementary schools, they brought it back to the central office, and it disappeared. So no more arts teachers. It's a $30 million chunk of money, and the district took it, and elementary school students didn't get their arts teachers. That is just one example of the type of mismanagement, and in some cases outright fraud, that happens in big government agencies like LA Unified. So addressing that is the third priority for me.
Any other questions for Dan? Maybe from a student, one of our students. We're gonna wait for a student question before we move on to any.
Your question up front.
Yeah, so I know that you kind of started pursuing your actual kind of dream of teaching in your 40s, right? So I feel that a lot of people are sort of scared to kind of change their careers and kind of stray away from the path that they've already worked so hard to build before. So what was your thought process like when you made that decision, and what did you have to consider like your losses and gains?
Yeah.
Great question. So I'll say this, everything that I did leading up to being a teacher and now running for the school board, it all adds together. Like, I don't regret a single thing that I did before, right? So I worked in finance and I learned how to do financial modeling, right? I worked in sales for software companies, and I actually use those things every single day, not just as a classroom teacher, but also running for school board, right? So the reason that I feel, Ding mentioned it, right? Like, this is an $18 billion government agency. There's not a single person on the school board right now with budget experience. Like, that's something very tangible that I bring. It wouldn't have happened unless my first job out of undergrad was in finance, right? The next job I had after that was in sales. And so much of like being, campaigning is about how do you relate to people. So much about being a teacher is also the same thing, right? Like, I have to convince students to be motivated in class, right? I have to convince them that they can do the work. And so much of that comes from the other experiences that I've had. It's just very clearly made me a better teacher. And I think, when you look at like just different parts of your life, so I'm married, I have 3 kids, and there are a lot of things that, when you're an adult and you're a parent, you have a lot of responsibilities. And what I realized as I was growing up and starting to make these decisions about career is I have to just be very honest about what I bring to the table for my family and what my wife brings to the table for the family, and making sure that our relationship is solid so we can take care of the whole family. Like, you guys say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to have a family. And my village are my kids and my wife, and together we make it work. If it was just me alone doing all these things and making decisions, it wouldn't work at all. So I guess the long answer to your question is, in every stage of your life, you shouldn't feel like you're alone, right? Whether you're in a relationship, whether it's your parents, don't be afraid to ask for help, because when you're committed to something, this is actually my favorite quote in the world. It's like, when you commit to something, providence opens up, right? When you make the decision to pursue something that is true to you, you will be surprised by what happens around you, things you didn't even thought about, people that you didn't think about, relationships that you had that you don't remember. They all come back and they propel you. But it comes from making that decision and saying, I'm gonna do this, and this is where I'm headed.
Again, my name is Eric. I'm one of the parents, and actually, Ollie and I had this idea about Cheers, and we just kind of thought, and we started it, and 5 years later.
Congratulations.
So
It's
thank
amazing.
you. Then we get distinguished guests like yourself. Thank you for coming. One of the questions that, just from my experiences dealing with bureaucracy, government bureaucracy, I along with your background, from what I understood so far today, you've been more with the corporate background, with also, past few years teaching. So I'm just curious what your, what is your thought about the differences between the government? Some of the bureaucracy is unavoidable bureaucracy versus, politics in corporate world. How would you propose, once you're elected, to deal with that quite different bureaucracy?
Yeah, absolutely. So the corporate world's a lot easier, right? I think about, so most companies and corporations, they teach you this in business school, there's the profit motive. It's very clear, and people kind of work together to achieve a very single goal. In government, in public service, in politics, it's different. There are many goals, there are many actors, and then the sort of competitive, the regulatory environment is a lot more complicated. But I've learned kind of 3 things about how to make it work, right? And this comes from my experience a little bit in the private sector, but before I was teaching, I helped open 17 charter schools in Los Angeles, which was kind of a political activity in and of itself. But if you want to make a change in a political government agency, there's 3 things. First and foremost, you need to do community organizing, right? Like, you need to go out into the public and you need to figure out what the issue is, and then you need to go and knock on doors and ask people for their help to solve the issue. If you get and do the community organizing and you have a base of people that say, hey, we need to fix this, and here's a person or an idea or a nonprofit like Cheer that can actually be a solution, then you've got 50% of the game done. Because when you go to the political leaders, who actually, whether it's in the case of LA Unified, it's the school board and the superintendent. If you go to the school board of LA Unified and the superintendent, you get them in a room and you say, hey, I'm in Chatsworth. I've got this organization, Cheer. We've gone out into the community and we've identified these needs, and we have 1,000 people that signed this petition that are, they need change. They need something to be done. When you bring that, most politicians will be, okay, like, you've done the work, you've gone and talked to the people, like, what do you need? Then you get alignment from the political leaders. So if you do the community organizing, you'll get the alignment. And then the last thing you need is you need a partner, like a nonprofit like Cheer. Because once you get into the weeds of a bureaucracy, nobody knows how to get things done that are different than the normal way they do things. There's a piece of paper, and it goes from one person to the next, 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 right? And the people that actually have to sign off and stamp and do all this stuff, they don't know what the person next to them does or what the person before them did with that paper. They just work in their silo. So if you have alignment from the political leaders, then everybody in the chain will have permission to do something a little faster. Then the next problem is they don't know what that is. So then you need a third party, like a partner, to come in and just get all the people in a row and just explain, you're gonna get this piece of paper. It's coming from this other person. This is what they did with it. This is why it's really important for you to do your piece and move it really quickly to the next person, because the next person is gonna take it and do this other thing. If you do all that, community organize, get alignment from the superintendent and the board, and then come and actually help move the process along by just getting people to understand what their role is, big things happen. And I've seen it in my own life with LA Unified. Like, I helped get a breakfast program started for the entire district. We moved the entire district to a free breakfast program for every single kid, and we got it done in about 12 months, right? Because we did the organizing, because we got alignment from the soup. And then we hired a bunch of people to go out to the schools and actually take care of, the nuts and bolts of it. So you do those three things, you can move a big agency.
And to be more concrete about the organizing part, I saw that Dan actually brought some of the flyers and also sign up sheet for volunteering. You can do it even if you're only a high school student. So please come on to ask questions and take a look at the sign up sheet. I'd highly encourage you to experience that. It was really fun canvassing or knocking on doors with my kids. So it will be a fun experience.
Ding did it while she was pregnant.
Oh yeah, I did the canvassing with my little one. It was interesting to hear what other people in our community think about the schools and to create those connections as then share the organizing piece of making changes together. I see we have no action.
Hi Dan, thanks for coming. And we live in a very good school area, and Nobel is our middle school.
Yeah.
And about like 6 or 7 years ago, when my son just started middle school, people was waiting in lines. I think like thousands of waiting lists to get into Nobel middle school. So we were lucky we don't have to wait in line.
Yeah.
But once we got into Nobel Middle School, we were so surprised. The enrichment program was so weak.
Yeah.
So when we complained to the teacher says they used to get $100 per student for gifted student. And at that time, it was zero. So they have no money to launch any good enrichment program. So this is like before pandemic. So my question is like, this is 7 years after.
Yeah.
So does the district has some plan to offer some money for gifted students in Nobel Middle School?
Yeah.
They don't have a plan right now. But I'll say this, so I'm a budget person and I look at the LA Unified budget. So the central office downtown by itself has a budget of about $400 million, right? That's the central office bureaucracy. And then outside of that budget, there's like 6 major line items in LA Unified for their instructional spend. And of those 6 line items, every single one has an additional overhead budget. The overhead budget for each of those line items, they're mostly around like 7 or 8% of the budget, which is far in excess of most private sector companies in terms of the overhead, but also other school systems that are well run in America. Like 5% as an overhead line item is generally what is considered best practice. If you go to LA Unified and you take their budget and you just say, okay, I'm gonna cap everything at 5%, right? Because that's best practice for public school systems. I'll tell you, like the Catholic schools do it even better. The overhead line item for a Catholic school is 2.5%, right? You get $120 million just like that. And this is $120 million outside of the $400 million that's already just central office bureaucracy, right? So $120 million gets you about $40 per kid, compared to the $100 you were thinking about. So we need to be doing that in LA Unified, right? It's $18 billion bureaucracy. There's gonna be a $9 billion school facilities bond on the ballot this November for LA Unified as well. So the district has resources. We can do more and we can fully fund our GATE programs and bring those back. But we haven't yet. And that's part of the reason why I'm running. We need new leadership at the top of the district to bring these issues up.
Let's do one last question. Student. I'll see if there's a question from student. Any question? One last question from students?
Oh, Benjamin had a question.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, that's there's meet and greet after this. We can still talk after this.
Well, sort of as a follow-up to the previous question,
Yeah.
I think more of what my mom was asking was like, a lot of schools have really weak extracurriculars or extracurriculars are underfunded. So I think the question was more like, do you have like any plan to strengthen extracurriculars across the district?
Thanks. No question. Sports, arts, robotics, music, those are all the problems that have historically been underfunded, especially in the last 20 years in LA Unified. And the great thing is there's actually money to support those programs. It's just not getting to your school sites. And I already gave like an example of it. There was $30 million that was supposed to come and fund additional arts programs at elementary school. That money literally disappeared because the school, because downtown it's actually allocated for every elementary school has their name next to that money, and the money just got scooped away, right? So we just we just do what we're supposed to do, and we get to bring back those extracurriculars, and we get to have more programs and bring a little bit more joy back to our school sites. So that's the history of LA Unified, and that's, again, one of the things that I need to change, and hopefully we can all do it together.
Thank you so much. So please spread the word about what you hear today and tell us that this is a very important consequential, as they say, election year. Even if you're not able to vote yet, it will be great, I think, for us to really raise our voice, telling others why this is very important for us to always consider voting for him. I'm not endorsing him officially as a nonprofit org. I really want to share that this will be.
I just couldn't be more proud to be here. It's really, it's just a really wonderful moment. So thank you, Dane, and thank you, Cheer, and thank you, students and parents.